Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Fed Up, your no BS nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Marie, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist, working with clients since 2014. After swimming up diet culture's bullshit stream for so many years, I am fed the absolute up with how miserable it's making people feel when we are supposed to be getting healthier. This podcast is here to help you gain your sanity back so you can stop yo-yoing once and for all and finally learn how to trust yourself so you can enjoy food again without fear or shame while still getting to your health goals. My aim is to teach you how to detect the BS in not just the food and diet industries, but in all realms of life, because I know that, like me, we are all just a little fed up. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome on back. Thank you for bearing with me during a little bit of a hiatus. I've been sick and haven't had a voice. That's my whole thing, is you can't record a podcast without a voice. So sorry. We're just not going to talk about that. Something just fell off my shelf. It's fine. I just live in a cabin that was built in the 1860s. It's not haunted. Okay, anyway, today we are talking about why it is so common that we are equating health and living a healthy lifestyle with also a miserable lifestyle. It is so common that I hear in the space of training clients for the last decade, working with people all across the board with nutrition, but also just conversations I have with my friends and in my dietetics program, even, that people have this super high expectation of what a healthy lifestyle looks like. Maybe due to influencers, maybe due to, I don't know, the fact that we're really, really hard on ourselves. I don't know. But it is so common to think that we need to be following some type of really extreme thing in order to be healthy. And I've even had friends be like, well, you're pretty extreme. You probably work out every single day. And I'm like, I do not at all. That's actually never been my thing. Even when I competed in a bodybuilding competition, the days, I took 6 weeks. I did not know what I was doing. I did not hire a coach. I just winged it. And I think I still had pizza 2 different times during that 6 weeks. I did not do any fasted cardio. I am not that extreme compared to a lot of people in the fitness space are, frankly. And the fitness space also tends to attract a lot of people that end up with really extreme eating patterns or really extreme biases towards how to get someone to lose weight or whatever it may be. We are surrounded and bombarded with information that make us feel like we're living super unhealthy lives, which, granted, trust me, I have met some people that I'm like, you haven't even left your bed in 2 years and you just order DoorDash. Trust me, people live very unhealthy lives. And sometimes it's medically, induced, something that they can't really control. They're disabled, things like that. But other times it's just pretty, obvious that they didn't take care of themselves. But the people that come to me are usually not those people. They've spent years trying to live healthier or thinking about living healthier or trying every diet in the freaking books and always falling off because of this theme. When I get healthy, it sucks. And quite frankly, it doesn't have to suck. And when we hear about moderation, some people know exactly what that means for themselves. And they say that. And there's a lot of people that they'll talk to me about well, I try to do moderation. And then I ask them, well, what does that look like to you? And what they describe to me is not moderation. It's either extremely limited, extremely restricted. They think moderation is well, I enjoy sweets at birthday parties and that's it. I'm like, that's not even in moderation. Moderation is having a sweet treat a day, maybe, or definitely multiple times a week in my eyes. And also how much of that sweet treat you're having and why you're having that sweet treat also. So if you're eating a dozen donuts for breakfast, that's not what I'm talking about. All right, let's use a little bit of common sense. I'm talking about having something sweet after lunch or having a little sweet latte in the day or having some dessert after dinner. That's totally normal and totally fine. But there are people that think that would be a lot, right? They're wait, you have one or multiple sweet things a day? That's insane. And I know that people were raised in households where like they get to choose one sweet treat a day, and like maybe that might help your family, but there are some people that will interpret that and end up in dire consequences later. Meaning, I've known people as adults, remember, I typically work with adults here, that they remember as kids, like they lived like that, where their mom made them choose one sweet treat a day. So if they were like, well, I really want a cinnamon roll, they're like, okay, well, that's your sweet treat a day. So don't ask me for ice cream later. So it taught the kid too to like, okay, I'm going to skip the cinnamon roll because I want the ice cream later. Like that's totally fine to teach your children how to do that. Nothing wrong with that. However, it can also, to some children, all of a sudden they hit college and they don't have that rule anymore, and they just end up totally overcompensating for the limitation that you put on them. Or they end up hiding sweets and they end up craving it because, again, now they really want something and you're not letting them. And again, maybe the kids or maybe the parents chose different times to have sweet treats. So now your child is watching you eat the ice cream, but they already had the cinnamon roll. I know that the intention is good. I know that for some kids it might help. For a lot of kids, they grow up into adults that do not know how to regulate themselves because they never had to do it. You did it for them. Okay? So anyway, moving on. We typically view healthy living, exercising, eating healthy as pretty boring. We might associate it as pretty extreme, or we're thinking about all the things we have to give up. Like, I can't go out with my friends anymore. I can't order this favorite fast food from this favorite place I get once a week. We think we have to disrupt our entire lives. And that's why it doesn't stick, because you try to do an entire 180 overnight and human behavior doesn't freaking work like that. All right. And then you end up like so tough on yourself. So a lot of my clients think they should be eating less, eating better, eating cleaner. And then when I ask them what they're currently eating, one, sometimes it doesn't sound all too bad. I'm like, okay, what do you want to improve then? And they're like, well, the only sugar I should be eating is like fruit and natural sugar, right? And I'm like, well, I mean, okay, yeah, you shouldn't make a lot of your food with a bunch of added sugars. I think it's about like 50 to 60 grams a day that they try to say like stay under that. But honestly, if you're getting like a lot of nutrients, you're staying within your calories, the excess sugar only really becomes a concern when you're also in excess calorie, and then you're gaining weight, and maybe you're sedentary also, and maybe you're not brushing your teeth, so you're eating all the sticky candy. Like, there are reasons not to eat a whole bunch of sugar, right? However, a lot of people don't realize like you could probably have 100 to 200 grams of sugar a day, like total sugars, and like you're totally fine. Okay. So anyway, sometimes we think that we should be having 0 or we should only be having 30 grams. And like in today's modern lifestyle, I know that we shouldn't be condoning that we should have 200 grams of sugar a day, but like it's realistic. And if you have a freaking soda, there's your entire sugars for a day. So like be realistic. It's okay to have some diet sodas. It's okay to go sugar-free or skip the cinnamon roll. That can be a win for people, right? Like I said no to the cinnamon roll and I'm really proud of myself because I have never been able to do that and I didn't feel like I wanted it. That's a win. Other people have to allow themselves to have the cinnamon roll guilt-free and move on from that and have a full fulfilling meal before and after that too. And like move on from the cinnamon roll. They didn't feel the need to binge it. They just had one. They allowed themselves to have it. They didn't beat themselves up over it, whether in their head or in person. They didn't go and binge or purge. That's also a win for certain people. So that's what I mean by like, there are so many nuances within nutrition that modern day media and influencers and all of that get so wrong because people will respond to the same exact advice or the same exact situation very differently. And again, the win over the same exact thing, either eating the cinnamon roll or not eating the cinnamon roll, both can be a win. Okay. So life is not going to mimic whatever diet you downloaded from the internet, especially, again, if you're not already living that way. So we end up going out, we end up having celebrations, we end up eating too much food, we end up wanting comfort foods, or again, you made a vow to not eat any fast food this week, and then now all you're thinking about is fast food. That's actually pretty normal for the human brain. It's like telling yourself not to push the big red button, right? All of a sudden, you're staring at that big red button and you're like, I really want to press it, even though I know I shouldn't. It might blow us all up, right? Every single movie is like, do not press this. It's a self-destruct button, right? And yet like everyone wants to press it. So think about that next time you put the dessert on the shelf and you say, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. And then be honest. Do you end up going and like eating the entire Oreo package? Maybe. So we need to practice doing things a little bit differently. So a lot of times too, what we end up doing is in order to jumpstart our health journey, we think that we should like go extreme and then you'll loosen up a bit. Okay. Let me just tell you, it doesn't work. Let me just tell you, hundreds and hundreds of clients that I've worked with, it just doesn't work. Okay. If you think you need to start with a 7-day detox, a 30, a whole 30, a 75-day hard, whatever it may be, you're like, okay, I'm just going to go really extreme and like reset my metabolism. That's not a thing. That's just not a thing. If you want to reset your metabolism, just drink some water, walk, sleep, move a little bit, and stop eating like whatever it is that you're trying to quote unquote detox from, like alcohol or again, like a lot of fatty foods or a lot of high sugary foods. Like just kind of stop eating so much of it. You don't have to go back to zero and start filling your plate with more of the foods that you know are really nutrient dense. That's how you detox. You don't need to like go on the 7-day liquid diet or go on this like, I'm going to go on a fruit fast for 48 hours. Like, don't do that. Okay. Just like start eating better. And we'll talk about how to do that in a little bit. But something that I've seen a lot of times too is really bad habit forming advice. So a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to go to the gym every single day for the next 60 days to build a habit. Okay, you do that. And then like, I don't see you for the next 6 months. That's typically what happens. Habits do not form from going from 0 to 100 miles per hour overnight. Even though a lot of advice too are like, do this every single day for 21 days straight or for however many days straight. Like, no, that's not how habits are formed. That doesn't work. No. There are ways to build habits on top of what you're already doing and fit it into your life so that it doesn't feel like you're living somebody else's life. And eventually you mold your own lifestyle more and more into that healthy lifestyle until you're living it second nature. But if you're trying to just force feed yourself broccoli when you literally have not had a vegetable in 5 years, you have some learning to do. You have some practice to do. You need some grace. And we'll build up to that, right? We'll add some layers. So going from 0 to 100 does not work. And I know that we know people who are like this, or your mother or your grandmother or your aunt or whoever, they eat like a bird and they seem to be fine by it. One, you are not them. Stop comparing yourself to other people's habits and their comments because you don't know what they're doing outside of that conversation or outside of that comment. And I bet you when Auntie Karen comments about the pie going straight to your hips, or, oh, you don't need a second piece of pie, or, oh, I hate Thanksgiving food because it's always just a bunch of fat. I always gain 10 pounds after I eat all of that stuff, all of those comments. That has nothing to do with you. All that's doing is highlighting her own insecurity with how much food she's eating. She wants to beat everyone to the punch. She feels unhealthy and guilty, so she wants to bring other people down with her. I don't know. People obsess over their own plate and what other people are eating and what foods are healthy or not healthy. And they're going to push those biases on other people in subtle comments and explicit comments. And you need to just put up your walls for one, but also just be aware of how that has influenced you over your life. If you grew up with a mom, an almond mom, or you grew up with a diabetic mom, or you grew up with whoever was feeding you had OCD and whatever it may be, or you were, I don't know, you grew up in urban areas or a rural area where you didn't have access to fresh fruit or grocery stores. It was mostly liquor stores and, we call those food deserts or food swamps, right? So there are legit things that have influenced the way that you view food. I've talked about this before, and I want you to start noticing them and be like, okay, whose voice is that? Where did that come from? I've had clients be like, well, I just feel like I should be full already and but then I'm just hungry and then I go, in my closet and I binge chocolate Hostess cupcakes. And then when I ask them like, well, what are you eating for dinner? Send me a picture. And I'm like, girl, this is like enough food for a fucking toddler. Like you need way more food than this. So she thinks she's eating enough and she's not. So then she ends up binging and overeating later. So when I actually increase people's calories or increase the allotted calories, they end up actually following it and eating what they're supposed to eat. And then like cravings go away, binging goes away because they're allowed to have 2 cookies with dinner or before dinner. Like we take away those restrictions a lot of times. And again, even if you are a very permissive eater or you grew up in a very permissive household where like it was just free for all, quote unquote, junk food or fast food or pizza or whatever it may be, like you just did not grow up with very healthy options, or you're currently living that lifestyle with your own, purchases. Again, pause for a moment and see how we can start improving those meals. But like if your habits are to order out, like there's a whole thing that needs to happen before we're just like meal prepping every single week. Okay. This is why like you meal prep once and then you're like, well, that sucked. And then you don't do it again for months. Trust me, you're not the only one. So we need to get better at like looking at what you're currently doing or looking at how you grew up, looking at all those things that influenced you and working with them. I know it sounds insane. So health does not have to be so miserable. It does not have to be so hard because it doesn't have to be so perfect either. And when you focus on all the things that you cannot have, when you focus on you have to be like this perfect, clean eating machine, you're going to feel like shit, anything that's like quote unquote not on your meal plan. But like if everything's included, if nothing's off limits, and you're focusing on building plates and building habits slowly but surely, we actually start making changes. And I'm sorry that I'm not going to get you to lose 10 pounds in a week, but like it doesn't work like that. I could get you to lose 10 pounds in a week. And then guess what? Next week, you're gaining back 20. So we're not doing it that way because life has a ton of flexibility. So we need to have a ton of flexibility. Your body is also pretty good at surviving and thriving, especially if you're living in a developed country. Assuming so, you're listening to this podcast. And you'd be surprised by how regular and normal your hormones are or your nutrient levels are, despite sleeping like shit and eating like shit. And trust me, it's not the bread, okay? It's not the sugar necessarily. It's the alcohol. It's the lack of fiber, the lack of veggies, the lack of regular meal frequency. It's the every time you eat, you feel full of shame and guilt. That has an effect, a physiological effect. What you think has an effect on your body, mind you, placebo. But also they have shown with like, if you're expecting a higher calorie meal, you release more ghrelin and more like, we're about to digest a high calorie meal type of hormones and type of digestive enzymes. So when you expect that the food is fattening and bad for you and terrible, you're literally like releasing stress hormones and higher amounts of the digestive enzymes and the ghrelin, which is what like increases your appetite. Anyway, there's a whole thing there. But when you allow yourself to, one, not be perfect every single freaking day, every single freaking week. You allow yourself some vacations. You allow yourself some pizza nights. You allow yourself some days without veggies because nothing looks good at the grocery store and you live in the middle of freaking rural Montana. It's fine. Okay? Give yourself some grace. Let's find what works, right? Frozen veggies, canned stuff. Try to look at your week too. I try to get people to like zoom out a little bit. Every day might not be perfect, but how's your week look? And people forget about that because you'll be really good for 3-4 days and then you'll be really bad for 3-4 days. And it's like, okay, so it's 50-50. Of course, you're not going anywhere. Or again, you can kind of release a lot of pressure. Works really well if you're feeding children because children's appetites change based on what they ate that day and based on what they did that day. So some days your child may not eat a lot of food, but like the next day they're starving, right? That's totally normal. Again, look at their whole week. Look at, did they get some veggies, some protein, some fats throughout their whole week, and pay attention to more what they're telling you about that. Because again, if you're also not consistent with the meals or with the activities that they're doing, some activities, they're just staying at home, watching TV or coloring all day, they're not going to eat a lot. They're not expending a lot of energy. Versus you take them to the park first thing in the morning, they are 100% going to be hungry hungrier by lunch. So again, just realizing that you're the same way. We're all just giant babies. We're all humans. We are a little bit different, but we are all humans. And instead of focusing on maybe again, like meal prepping, the perfect thing, maybe take some baby steps, like just start packing lunch for work. If you eat out every single day, start packing a lunch. And yes, it can be a sandwich. It can be ramen, okay? It doesn't have to be a perfect salad or like, again, you force yourself to eat salads and they just don't fill you up. So we need to find something that actually fills you up, include some rice in your salad or some protein, all of that stuff too, right? And then on days that you don't pack lunch or on weeks that you don't meal plan, you need to have a different plan. So I also have people that they like to eat lunch with their coworkers. They have a favorite sushi spot or they go on date night once a week or once a month. And that's okay. We can work that in. I particularly do not like coaches who are like, oh, you went to the Cheesecake Factory last night. Well, I guess you're going to stay and do 30 minutes of the elliptical. Because also that 30 minutes on the elliptical is 100% not coming close to the pasta they ate at the Cheesecake Factory. But also like let the people live, okay? Let the people live and teach them how to portion control at restaurants or what to order at restaurants so that they're getting some protein, or how to eat earlier in the day when they are preparing for that larger meal at night, right? Because we can balance that out without encouraging restriction. Oh, you're going to have a huge meal tonight. Okay, don't eat a lot, right? Or, okay, let's make protein a big, focus today for breakfast and lunch, but like, let's eat a little bit lighter. Absolutely. So we can work with clients to, oh, you like to go to sushi once a week. Okay, cool. Let's include that in your frickin' meal plan, because otherwise they're going to go and get sushi and just not tell you, or they're going to go get sushi and feel terrible about it. Or, it just creates a spiral that we don't need to do. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Another thing is, if we could do an audit of some of your favorite meals, maybe an entire day if you're feeling up for it. But some people think that when they start tracking, they have to track all the time, every single thing forever. And of course, that is incredibly overwhelming. All right. But if you could just start by like, how much actually am I eating of this? Or portioning things out and measuring things, or just looking up the nutrition contents, or reading labels, whatever it may be that is where you're at. Maybe audit something by weighing it or tracking it into an app so that you can see the total protein or the total calories. You don't have to nitpick it apart, every single macro, every single micro, especially if it feels like a lot at first. You don't have to track every single meal all the freaking time. But if you know that you have like pretty much a similar breakfast every day, maybe put it in the app and just be like, oh, that's about 400 calories, but it's only 10 grams of protein. How can I increase the protein and like keep the calories about the same? And you can start playing around with that and adjust your breakfast. It doesn't have to be like you come up with a brand new breakfast. Or again, maybe you're not eating breakfast at all. Maybe you can start there and just kind of go with maybe what you could be eating. And same thing again with if you're going out to eat, a lot of times you can look up what their menu is. And I'm not saying you have to get nitpicky about counting calories, but maybe just start being more intentional if you never have been before. And again, I work with people on this very nuanced because I have people that can spiral and get really obsessive over the numbers. Otherwise, I have other people that have no idea how much they eat. They have no idea what a half a cup of something is. They have no idea what 4 ounces of something is. So I'll just have them measure it one time. Or they eat, I had one client who makes a smoothie every morning for her and her husband, and they split it. And she goes, my portion is 800 calories. And I'm like, okay, so that's like 2 meals for you. So there are things that I might have you audit, but it doesn't have to be you're tracking every single thing. And if you are starting to track, say that you want to track a little bit more or you want to do a day or two, it is much easier to plan your meals ahead of time and kind of put it in there and then just follow it. This reduces the decision fatigue. This helps adjust the meals ahead of time. And then you just follow it so you can see ahead of time rather than at the end of the day realizing that you're short protein or you're over your calories, right? And it's exhausting to go throughout your day and then be like, oh, I've got to track this. Oh, I've got to track this. Oh, I've got to track this. When it's already tracked, you're like, cool, I just eat it. Awesome. And then if you make adjustments, make adjustments. But that's a lot easier than sitting there and tracking your meal while you're also trying to enjoy it. And then people start resenting it, right? So don't do that. Another thing is once you start logging those things regularly, or once you do see the portion sizes, or you start to pay more attention, it's easier to stop tracking. And it's easier to, if you are tracking still, you can log the repeats of those same foods. So there might be a lot of upfront work, but then you can stop. Or then you can kind of loosen the reins a little bit. Or you start to learn that like, okay, when I eat this way, I get enough protein. Cool, I'm just going to eat mostly this way. And you get better at it. It's a practice. This is not going to happen the first week or the first month you start doing it. And people expect that they will be perfect, or like they hold themselves to such a high standard when like if you don't know how to cook, or if you don't have a rhythm, or if it takes you 8 freaking hours to meal prep on a Sunday, of course you don't want to do that every single Sunday. You got a life. You want to do other things, right? Or again, it just seems like such a task. But if we can find ways that work for you, that's what we're going to do. So I've said it a dozen times or more on this podcast already, and I'm going to say it again. Binging follows restriction. And that restriction can be mental. So if you're feeling guilty or like you should not be eating something, a lot of times you will crave that food more and be more susceptible to binging it. Hence the big red button syndrome, right? Allow yourself the foods. You have to practice this again. You have to tell yourself the chocolate will be there tomorrow. You can have it at any time. You have to include it with your meals. Have it sometimes before your meals. It's going to be a real trip when you do that. Sit down and eat the ice cream or eat the cookies with a glass of milk and enjoy it. Eat it like you mean it. Put it on a glass of plate. Put it on a dinner plate. Sit your ass down and eat the dessert. When you eat it out of the carton, when you eat it in front of the TV, when you eat it standing in the kitchen at midnight with the lights down low after everybody goes to bed, you know you're not portioning. You know you're not feeling good about it. You know that you are in such war with yourself, and that stress is definitely way worse than the ice cream. So we're going to be purposeful about it. You're going to start including it and allowing yourself mentally and physically to eat those foods that you're scared of. Now, a lot of times too, what happens is people will, again, try to compensate. So if they know that they're going to go out and eat a lot of food, or, oh, I'm going to have some cookies after dinner, then you either try to eat super light at dinner to make up for it. But then when you end up eating the cookies, you're hungry because you didn't actually eat enough. Or again, you go to the Cheesecake Factory after a whole day of not eating, and now you're like eating super fast because you're famished. We need to start just eating when we're hungry and eating regular meals throughout the day, especially if you don't know your hunger cues that much or you haven't really been doing that. Again, it takes practice, and you can learn to just have like a portion of pasta and move the hell on. And there are times you're going to overindulge. There are times you're going to have to unbutton the top button of your pants. That's life. You're a freaking human. We have delicious food on this planet. And anybody who told you that like you're weird for not enjoying that or not, wait. If anybody told you that you're weird for enjoying that, they're weird. That's what I mean to say. So if you can, don't think about the things that you can't have and have to cut out. It's only going to increase your desire to want it. And a lot of us have a really rebellious nature, even to ourselves. So I want you to start enjoying food, making it intentional, maybe doing an audit, maybe start slowly adding in more healthful foods and healthful activities in your life throughout the week without trying to make it be like every single day is this perfect little robotic routine that you do. It's not going to work. It's not going to last. Focus on adding in protein, adding in fiber, adding in things that contain zinc and omegas like fish if you're not eating fish regularly. Maybe you can add in more cooking nights to learn the skills and practice knowing what's in your food and preparing your own food so that you don't rely on DoorDash and restaurants. But again, you're going to have to be okay with trial and error, with being a shit cook at first. If you're not cooking right now, you're going to get it wrong. You're going to have mess ups. You're going to have to just keep failing forward and keep trying new recipes and getting better and repeating recipes that sucked last time and making them better. You're going to have to practice, all right? Take some classes, I don't know, watch some YouTube and practice. Anyway, I hope this helps. I hope this allows you to add in intentional desserts so you're not binging them in secret. I hope this helps you maybe explore the possibility that maybe your perspective of health is a little extreme. So loosen the reins a bit. What is something in your life that you're doing right now that you can add to make it healthier, or that you can start doing to reduce a bad habit? So again, I'm not going to think about reducing my fast food intake. I'm going to think about packing my lunch. Well, if I pack my lunch, I reduce my food intake, right? So, or my fast food intake. So you can kind of mind shift a little bit to get the same outcome. But our human brains are wired to want to press the big red button. I don't freaking know why, okay? Maybe it's just our free will and our autonomy that is a little bit of a curse as well as a blessing, right? But I hope this allows you some food freedom. If you want to work with me, I do offer some one-to-one coaching. You can book 30 or 60-minute sessions on my website pretty directly. And then if you're a client with mine, I just work with you on nutrition. So if you buy sessions, or if you're in my Lift Club even, I might not do a super in-detailed thing, but you can use my in-app nutrition tracker if you're in any of my programs. But if you want to jump on a call and just really talk about your nutrition, and we can either keep that on an ongoing thing, or you can just do a one-time thing. So I'm here for you if you want to chat about it or really figure out what you need to be doing or what could really be working better for you. So hope this helps. Love y'all. Thanks for dealing with my voice. Hopefully the next podcast, I will be not so croaky. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Have a great day. Thanks so much for being here, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot and tag me over on Instagram, or leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening from. Your support means the world to me and only helps me get the No BS news out to more people. If you're interested in working with me in nutrition or personal training, check out my programs and courses on my website at kaylamariefitness.com and on Instagram at kaylamarie_fit. See you next week.